So my name's Elle Green. I'm a brand solutions consultant with LinkedIn. I started my career about 15 years ago without giving away my age. And I started in advertising, marketing, branding. And I moved into employer marketing or recruitment marketing, however you want to call it. So I call myself a marketeer who now has to think like a recruiter. But for the rest of you in this room, you're recruiters that are having to think like marketeers. And we've heard some awesome stuff today from Rapid7 and the guys earlier, but we don't all have the luxury of having an incredible brand or free creative license or marketing that will do everything for us. A lot of us are trying to, I guess, spread the employer marketing love or talk about employer brand and talent brand and educate people. So we've got some lovely ladies with us today who are going to help talk some tactics around that shortly. But I'm going to start, as my fellow LinkedIners will know, with a story. So our world yesterday, the 90s, wasn't just about, as we alluded to earlier, the Spice Girls and Backstreet Boys and bad perms. It was also about the crazy advent of job boards. The world of recruiting went ballistic, and it was like, oh my God, we can reach active talent at scale globally. This is it. And hey, I know, I was one of them. I was advertising and communications for a recruitment agency, and I was like, this is great. But what it meant is that organizations had to fight to be seen and fight to be heard. They had to fight even harder to say, why me? Why would an account manager or a Java developer choose my organization over another organization? How do I stand out for the crowd? And if you've got a great funky brand or you're really well known, it might be a little bit easier. But what does that mean when I'm making a decision to work somewhere? At the end, and this kind of really meant that we were talking about employer brand. So employer brand is the unique and differentiating promise a business makes to its employees and potential candidates. That is what makes you unique about working there. The problem with our world yesterday in those wonderful 90s is something happened. What happened at the end of the 90s? Anyone for Tim Tams? We have lots of Tim Tams. End of the 90s, 2000, please. What happened? GSK, what? GFC, what else? Exactly. .com bubble, GFC, and the advent of Web 2.0. Kate, you get Tim Tams. And it really changed our world. But for the better, it was incredibly exciting. Because what happened was something like that. We had LinkedIn, had YouTube and Facebook, we had Twitter, we had Pinterest, and we had Instagram. Communication was no longer one way. So your employer brand had to be incredibly strong because people were responding to your employer brand. They were talking back to you. They were talking in images, pictures, tweets, texts, everything. The world exploded. And we suddenly built a global talent community that we had to communicate with on a two-way basis. What else happened for Tim Tams in this time scale? 2007 is the hint. Who said smartphones? Tim Tams! The advent of the first generation iPhone and smartphone absolutely changed everything. The world totally changed for recruiters and for marketeers alike. So for those marketeers thinking like recruiters and those recruiters thinking like marketeers, had to do things incredibly different. And this meant the employer brand slightly changed and it evolved as people were talking, as we were talking to our peers globally, as we were talking to potential candidates, as we were talking to our friends, and as people were talking online. It evolved into what we now call talent brand. And that is the highly social, totally public version of your employer brand. And that incorporates what your employees, what your potential candidates, what everybody sitting in this room and what we are saying to each other about your employer brand. Both just as important as each other, but you can't control it, you can influence it. So let's look at our world tomorrow. Let's move on from the 90s, the 20s, onto our world tomorrow. Big picture social media statistics. 72% of all internet users are active on social media. I'd be surprised if there's nobody in this room who isn't busting some social move right now. 89% of those are between 18 and 29 are social media users. 72% are between 30 and 49 engage in social media. And how many of you are looking to employ those passive quality candidates? And 71% of them use social media from a mobile device. So taking into account everything we've talked about, the social world, the use of mobile, what do you do with your employer and talent brand? If, as statistics tell us, that a company's employer brand is twice as likely to drive job consideration as its company brand, what do you do with that employer brand? And how do you translate it into a talent brand in your social world? I love to talk, but my time is over. We are going to hear from Victoria and Kellie, two of my lovely colleagues, who are going to actually explain to you how they've gone through that journey, building an employer brand and a talent brand. And I may have my iPad with me, but we have totally unscripted questions. We haven't rehearsed it, talked about it, or caught up before this session at all. So I'm not really just clicking in to log on to see what my first question is. So you joined CBA, Victoria, and although employer brand was on the table, nothing had really happened with it. Does this sound scripted? And it had sat there for a while. What did you do when you came on board to move it and bring this appetite for an employer brand actually to fruition?
Well, I guess there certainly was a lot of appetite for the work that we were wanting to do around defining an EVP and building an employer brand. So there's definitely that appetite. I think when I think back now, when we were reflecting on this, probably my own experience of coming into CBA was a really good foundation for then how we did kind of move to fruition. So I actually had very little perception or preconceived ideas about Commonwealth Bank at all. You know, I'm British, so I haven't grown up here. I haven't seen the transition of CBA from a government organisation through to, you know, a real enterprise beast and kind of technology and innovation focus. So I haven't witnessed that. I didn't have a Dolomites account when I was a kid. It took me a long time to understand what that actually was. Everyone was talking about Dolomites when I joined. So I had to look that up. So I didn't have that. I actually had an ANZ account. I had a UBank NAB account. And I didn't really want to work in banking or financial services. So, oh, what a great candidate I was. So, you know, but actually that kind of led to me having a very open perception of what it would be like to actually work at Commonwealth Bank. So that was a really good kind of starting point. I guess as well, you know, one of the main reasons that I joined was because there was a new chief marketing officer, Andy Lark, at the time, and he had a real digital focus for the business. So digital was kind of off the table. That was a given. We were going to be able to work with that. It was never a question of how can we do social. That was going to be a given. There was a new CEO, Ian Narev, a new head of HR, new head of OD, new head of talent acquisition. You know, they were going to be driving a lot of change, and the employer brand could kind of be that little cog amongst that huge amount of change that they would be driving. And then, of course, the Can brand, you know, I could see that as, whilst I wasn't a customer and wasn't interested in banking, I could see this Can brand, and it was really simple, clear, and gosh, it was everywhere. Every single billboard, bus stop, TV ad, it was all over the place, but it had a really simple message, and obviously a huge platform for us to be able to, you know, leverage for an employer brand perspective. So, you know, we had that appetite, we had a really good starting point, and I guess there were kind of 3 or 4 key things then that we learned, and I guess can work in other organisations as well, trying to do the same thing. You know, the first was really about a hugely extensive research, so involving as many people as possible. We had about 37,000 data points around why do people join, why do they stay, and why do they leave Commonwealth Bank. And I guess what was key about that and helped us along the way was that there were no questions asked, that there was no stone left unturned. You know, we hadn't included someone from a particular business area. You know, we had included so many people and so much information. And that obviously gave us a lot of credibility initially. And of course, I learned, it was the best induction ever. I learned a huge amount of information. The second thing was about being the expert. So I was told by our head of OD, Rhonda Brighton Hall, when I joined, you have got to be this expert, the creative voice. Otherwise, it's going to go out of control. Everyone loves having giving their 2 cents. Is that the Aussie phrase around, about fonts and colours and imagery, and you just never get anywhere. So she said, yes, get all the research and all the involvement from everyone beforehand, but when it comes to crunch time, you're the creative voice, you're the expert. So that kind of gave us permission and trust to move forward in that way. I guess the third piece that actually, in hindsight, was very much luck, but I think was a learning and for anyone else, is that if you can validate where you land, it gives you a lot of credibility. So someone else said to me, and this person might be in the room here a while ago, that you can only land in one place with your employee value proposition, and you can't land in multiple places. It just is one thing. And obviously you work through your criteria to define where that is. But if you can also find something else at the same time that validates you've landed in the right place, you've got a lot of credibility. So for us, that was a new vision. The previous vision had actually been achieved. It was about customer satisfaction, leading the way in the market and for customers, and we actually achieved that after a kind of 7-year journey. New CEO had come in Narev, as I said, and wanting to evolve, obviously, his kind of next chapter. So there's a real need to create or to define a new vision, new purpose moving forward. As a kind of insight and what that looked like, that new vision was about securing and enhancing financial well-being for people, businesses, and communities. Much bigger than just customer satisfaction. That's a big purpose. At the same time, not necessarily the ideal order. You'd ideally want the vision to come first, but not all ideal situations. At the same time, obviously, with our EVP work, where we actually landed was around come and work at Commonwealth Bank and you can have a real impact with the work that you do on your own career, your own growth, that of your team, making a customer's day by great customer satisfaction, through to obviously helping shape the economy or the way businesses bank. So much bigger than just yourself. They're the same thing pretty much, and that gave us a huge amount of credibility that we'd landed in the right place. So if you can find something like that, I think that's really key. And then lastly, it was around working really closely with marketing, aligning with the Can brand, not going off and doing something completely different. That kind of made sure that we were going in the same direction. And that was all about the people side of Can and kind of bringing our customer brand to life from an employer brand perspective.
Talking of marketing, for any of you guys who have stalked me, one of my ambitions in life is to actually increase the synergy between HR and marketing, and I see that with a lot of my clients that I work with. It actually can be quite difficult. Can you tell us a bit more about the relationship you built with them, how you actually built and fostered a close relationship with marketing?
Yeah. Well, I think this is something I've kind of just realised actually more recently, I think, and on my LinkedIn profile. Yeah. I say, and actually how I describe employer branding to people who have no idea what it is, which, let's be honest, is anyone outside of HR and a few people in HR. And I kind of say, when someone says in the pub, what do you do? Just like there's a marketing manager for a lipstick or a credit card or a trainer brand, a runner's brand. I'm a marketing manager for us as an employer and how we can attract the right people. And it's kind of like a light bulb just goes on because they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I kind of get that. And I think with marketing, it's been about explaining that to my peers in marketing. We're not just some people going off and doing some other creative stuff on the edge. Actually, we kind of fit under the master brand as just another pillar, just like our product brands, just like our customer brands, corporate brands. It's just employer brand. As I said, we're not going off and doing something crazily different. And I think if we can speak in the same language as marketing, if we can fit in with their brand model, if we can understand the brand model, they can see that we're just sitting under that master brand. It just makes the conversation so much easier with them, so speaking their language. And, really, ultimately, our marketers, they want 52,000 product ambassadors. We want 52,000 employees. We want 52,000 employer brand ambassadors. So we want the same thing. So, when I kind of realized that a while ago, that was a great kind of opportunity to have that conversation with marketing, with the social media team, and saying, you know, if we can build what we do with the employer brand is going to impact your products. The perception of our employer brand and what it's like to work here is going to have a big impact on how our employees are talking about our products in the market and customers' perception too. So, you know, we want the same things, which is really powerful. But I do think, you know, I think we'll always, and anyone that's in a similar role, you know, we are constantly tapping on the door to marketing going, remember me in employer branding, and I would like some of that content to share, and remember me in your social media strategy. And it is constant, it's non-stop, and I've done it since I started this role, and I'm sure we'll continue doing that for a long time. But the voice is kind of getting a bit louder, and we're getting on the agenda, and that we're kind of getting more visible and being more involved in things. Something that's kind of helping me do that is actually physically sitting in marketing one day a week. You know, that kind of gets me involved in their thinking as they're working through particular projects and exposure, obviously get more insight into what's coming up. So that's been really useful. And then I think in terms of, you know, you said that synergy, I think for me, you know, what I'm most kind of excited about at the moment is, you know, absolutely looking at what my peers are doing with their careers and employer branding, and I actually love seeing, you know, a competitor do something really different, because it's just helping to push the industry more and lets me do more innovative stuff as well. So I like doing that. But what's much more powerful is when we can kind of look beyond careers, you know, look outside of our industry, outside of financial services for me, and actually see, you know, what's retail doing, what's FMCG doing, what are they doing in health, mining, and how are they communicating with their customers in really innovative ways? You know, how are they looking at iBeacons? How are they looking at apps, mobile, wearables, augmented reality? What are they doing, planning ahead for Google Glass, for example? Because, you know, we can then take those ideas and put them into how we communicate with candidates. And I think it's kind of our responsibility to keep evolving what we do as much as our peers in product marketing do, who are, you know, really ahead of kind of, I think, where we're all at. And that's kind of exciting, and that's, you know, where I think we need to be going.
Awesome. So not that you haven't done much yet at all. It can be quite a lot of work. So where would you say you are now with your employer brand? What next? Where does it go from here?
Oh, a lot more. You know, we are very much at the early stages. We're still learning. There's things we do differently, definitely. You know, we've learnt a lot and got lots of plans and things. But, you know, at the moment it is still embedding our new kind of look and feel throughout the candidate experience, you know, all the different touch points. A great next step for us is I'm really pleased that we'll actually take our employer visual identity, the look and feel, and roll that out through our internal comms, so the employee experience. So actually we'll now have a seamless experience through the candidate journey and then as an employee. That's a really big step for us. We've not had consistent internal comms guidelines ever, apart from the CAN brand, for example. So that's a you know, much more seamless experience for the candidate. And then, you know, we've already touched on in previous sessions around content. I really liked what Ed Nathanson was talking about with PR. But for us, the key is going to be content. And I'm sure you'll have heard that at every conference you've gone to now. But you know, it's content generation. It's executing content the same quality that our peers do in product marketing. And it's distributing that really effectively. It's empowering our recruiters, and then also the 52,000 recruiters to actually create that content and then enable us to share that as well. And then to be able to really have enough, what an awesome position would it be in, to have enough content that we can really then be very targeted and segment who we're communicating that content to. I'd love to get to the point where we could do some A/B testing with our content, which is, you know, you put 2 pieces of content up and you change the title or the end of the video or a few words, and you could test that and then go in the direction of the one that's most successful. You know, we're nearly there, but we've got a fair way to go.
Love it. Thank you so much, Victoria. It's, I think, a really great insight into an organisation that only has 52,000 employees to contend with. So I'd like to move on to Kellie now. We're talking about when you've got a robust employer brand. So Dan Shapiro has actually stolen our thunder a little bit. Yeah, I'm a bit upset about it. We'll have words with him later. So Kellie's going to talk to us about talent brand. Talent brand, so Campbell Arnotts had 11% talent brand and talent branding index, if you remember back, and basically they decided that just wasn't good enough. They decided they wanted to move up the talent brand index and really become the leader of the pack. And so can you tell us a bit about why you and the business sort of looked at that and thought, right, we're going to take on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone, thrilled to be here, and of course, there's no challenge like Dan sort of opening with that this morning. So, but look, quite right, talent brand, as you can see, was last, and there's no great way of saying that. That is for sure, but the business, Campbell Arnotts, they definitely know the value of a great talent brand. So they've got company brands and product brands that are sort of number one in their segments, but as you can see, we were falling, way behind in our talent brand, so we needed it to catch up in that sense. As Dan alluded to, but the point that I sort of really wanted to make was this hasn't been flick a switch by any stretch of imagination. It has been probably 18 months, and even before that, of solid work. It's been a really clear strategy, as well as some really focused work, and lots of strategies that I actually want to share with you, some of those today. So the first one that we did put in place was leverage what you have, and for Campbell Arnotts, this was about, the business tell us they love working with these brands all the time. So it was really leveraging the brands. Of course, these are iconic brands, so at every opportunity we do try and leverage the brands, of course. But I wanted to show you as well our employee value proposition. Now, this was the employee value proposition that we had when we were last, okay? They've had it for about 10 years, in fact. So, really quite interesting. But why? Why didn't it work so much then? It really did, because it's internally what our people say about working for Campbell Arnotts. So it's really real, it's absolutely living. But we weren't marketing that externally. We weren't marketing it in line with our consumer branding as well. We weren't reflecting that reality externally. So we really had to leverage what we already had, which was that employee value proposition.
And Tim Tams.
And of course, Tim Tams, yes, of course.
That helps.
So we do. And look, we have some fun with our brands, which is what you'll see. We love them. You can't buy happiness, but you can buy Tim Tams, and it's kind of the same thing. We know they love that, but it's much more to work with Campbell Arnotts. So we really made sure that we asked them, what else makes you happy other than the brands? And we really made a strategic effort to try and bundle our employment experience, and I just wanted to show you that today. This is the result, really, top line of it. There were no new initiatives that came out per se. We didn't make stuff up, as can be the case. You can sort of get tempted, let's start adding all these pieces in. But this is what our people told it was like and why they loved working there. And the Love You Work branding messaging is just an everyday type of saying, we deliver a good project, go and, love your work sort of thing. So it just made sense that was our internal brand messaging in that sense. What we did then is market that externally. So, and you'll notice there, the external brand execution of that is a question. Now for us, talent brand is two-way. It's supposed to be a conversation, and we want it to be a conversation. We want to know what the motivators are for talent. And if it's not the right place for them, we're okay with that. There'll be another fantastic job opportunity for them, but we'd love to have that quality conversation. So that's really, really helped us. The other thing, and Ed so wonderfully showed us this morning, but our real people. So we're not showing stock photos. These are our long-termers just at a company function. These are our new starters. It's our talent acquisition team. It's our CEO and president. It's really people wanting to connect with just as much online as offline with real people. So we're really trying to make sure that that's what we're just providing a channel to do, really, to be honest. And we've extended that a little bit further. And the company, Campbell Arnotts, in their, I suppose, brand essence is very much around giving back. So for us, you'll see on our website a career chat. So we're wanting to have a conversation with people about their careers. So if it's not the right place, we may just give them some interview tips or, those sorts of things. But essentially, we're having great conversations and we're getting great engagement and sort of wanting to extend that talent brand further.
I think that's awesome that you've already reached out into the social world and you've put your whole team out there, which I think is a really great takeaway. But working in FMCG, you've got so many different talent segments. I mean, we've got marketers, product, customer service, research, Tim Tam testers.
Yes, yes.
How do you reach out and influence all those different segments?
Yeah, it's a very diverse workforce, as I'm sure a lot of you have. We have everything from scientists to, people on the line, sales and marketing. I wanted to show you our company careers page on LinkedIn, and this, as you can see, is really showcasing hundreds and thousands of career options and things that we do every day. We're showing the variety, we're having some fun with our brands, we're leveraging our people, but as you can see, the question in there, what are you hungry for? So we're engaging people about, hey, what is their right job opportunity? We take that even further by segmenting in terms of using the career page options and different value propositions for those audiences as well. And a second strategy that I really wanted to share with you today was about really listening to your audience. And this is our analytics page on LinkedIn. And what's that saying? It's sort of, two ears and one mouth, and you use them in that order and very much try and listen twice as much as you're speaking. And it's so tempting for this to get as a broadcasting mechanism, but we really try and look at our updates and see what's engaging with our talent. And some of it's been surprising, to be honest. Some of our least engaging content has been about updates with our US colleagues. And we would have thought, we've got global opportunities. That would have really resonated with talent. But people, our talent audience, would rather hear about opportunities closer to home. But things that really do work for us, Sunshine Fridays, we can't talk about them enough. Everyone wants to know about getting off early on a Friday. But there's so much more to it than that. So what we do is we tailor our content to different segments and different audiences.
And what kind of content do you post? So you've got, I know coming out in the States, Denise Morrison is an influencer, and I would say that's probably about insights and industry knowledge, etc. So do you tend to mix it up?
Yeah, absolutely. A really clear mix, but the numbers are our ears. They'll tell us what's the right content.
So you use that for campaign planning and what's next, what's working.
Yeah.
Awesome,
exactly
love
right.
it. So you guys have got over 9,000 followers. I think we want to know, what are you going to do to get to 10,000 followers? What would that mean to you?
What would that mean to us? We'd be very excited to get to 10. It would be huge. But it's not just about the numbers. As you can see, there's sort of been a really clear strategy, clear work done. In our branding, we know that you can't fake real flavour. We really want to do this in a quality way. It's about connecting with the right talent, not just hitting the numbers. Yes. So for us, if that takes us a little bit, then so be it, if it's the right talent. We're really wanting to just live the brand in everything we do in that sense. So we'll continue doing the strategy, but we have leveraged our brand ambassadors over the last probably 18 months, and you've probably heard a bit about that today. We've really put that in place, and it's really worked for us. And we're going to really make sure that we build on that. Real people, telling real stories, connecting with real people, to get past 10,000. And yeah.
Love it. We'll help you get there. We're going to go to Q&A shortly, but I'm just going to run through, if that's all right, with both of you. And I'll start with you, Victoria. some of your top tips for building an employer and a talent brand.
Yes, so I guess, kind of going back to what I said before, I think my first tip is about, being the expert or being the creative voice and setting that kind of permission or getting that trust at the start that if it's you or if it's a colleague or an agency partner, who is that, so that you don't get stuck at that point of everyone inputting, like I said, into the kind of really fun, creative thing that everyone really wants to get involved in because it's good fun, but it doesn't help speed things along. So that's number one, to be the expert. Number two is to really get to know marketing, to speak their language, to work with the brand models that they have, get to know what do they use, help talk to them and understand yourself that what the master brand looks like or that structure, and help educate both sides that the employer visual identity is, I'm told I'm not allowed to say employer brand under the master brand, but employer visual identity, how that fits under that master brand.
We won't tell anyone.
No. And then the third one is to look beyond careers. Like I said, it's what are the tourism industries doing, what's retail doing, what's health, what's FMCG doing, and replicating those for our own industry. I think that's what's really exciting. And then lastly, I think it's to do new stuff. Of course, looking at what our peers are doing and hoping we can evolve that and do better than that. But I think it's really exciting when we can go out with new stuff. And I do think that's our responsibility now. It's a niche industry, a niche skill set, employer branding. It's still very early. We're able to experiment. I think what's fun is that we can actually experiment more than our product marketing peers can do. They're often very visible. I'm not saying we're not from an employer brand perspective, but we can get away with a bit more because sometimes they don't really worry too much about us. So, you get a chance to actually experiment and do new stuff. And I think that is our responsibility to keep shaping the industry that we work in so that we have more permission to do even more as we go. So those are my top tips.
Love your passion. Kellie, for talent brand, what would your top tips be?
Top tips, leverage what you have. There will be something that is amazing in your organisation. It will be something different to. I really encourage that to be different to what your competitors are. Do make that time to really, do that research, listen to your people and your audience is absolutely key. Live your brand. I think going forward we're going to have even more transparency than ever. If we're not living our brands, then we will be found out. I think that's going to put a lot of emphasis back on us. And lastly, really to connect. I mean, this is just such a great, I look forward to this every year, just in terms of catching up with people, finding out what's new, learning, and which is just fantastic. So, definitely love to connect, which is the whole purpose of getting together. But if all else fails, this tends to work for me. So, and we needed some bribes for questions.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I love that, LinkedIn. Thank you. It's really hard. I think you can tell we're all pretty much passionate about this subject. We do actually have 5 minutes left and bribes. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. So just stick your hand up in the air if you have any questions, and we'll bring the mic down. Tim Tams. Hey, one down at look what Tim Tams can do. Got one down right at the front here. Thank you.
This one's for you, Kellie. Given that Campbell Arnotts is a global company, how did you manage, working on your global talent brand as opposed to just in Australia?
Yeah, great question. It is challenging. You've got the Campbell's corporate brand, US-centric, we're also global. Then we have things in Asia, those sorts of things. So there's lots of different company contexts that we need to put in place. Challenging is a word in terms of how do you reflect what's authentic and stand out and real and compelling in each of those markets and be true to an overall company. You've really got to ask the people is where I always go to. Go to the research. It's got to be real to the people in your business. So I always use that as my touchstone. So what we're doing now is we're doing some big work in the corporate space in Campbell Arnotts, globally. I'll be taking that and then looking and testing that. Does that work for our business in Asia? Does that work for our business here? It's a real art and science, and there's sort of no fixed rule, but I do go back to the people have got to find this real and be able to live this brand and be attracted to it as the final tick on what your employer brand should be for a country.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that's great advice, is that you look where, where's your business going? What are your objectives? Who do you need to take you on that journey to reach those objectives? Maybe define your underlying, your foundational value proposition, and then take it and test it in your local markets, open for interpretation as a summation. Does that work for you too? Thank you. Any more questions? Lovely. One in the middle.
The message is for Kellie as well. Just interested in terms of the icon with your career chat. Interested in learning what the traffic's like with that icon and how you actually manage the traffic in-house.
Great question. This is where some of it is not all perfect, yeah? So we've got Google Analytics, as most of you have. Our tracking, I wouldn't say is brilliant in terms of, really diving down into where are those people coming from, really segmenting who's going there, those sorts of things. We are managing the traffic. It's really quite surprising. You put something out there and, we're happy to have those chats. It's not overwhelming. We're connecting with people in a multiple of ways, social media, LinkedIn, their jobs, having those conversations, applications. So it's great to have that. We have absolutely, it's been a huge help for us to have that as a real standout feature, and we've had some great conversations and good quality talent that probably mightn't have considered us beforehand.
Great,
so it's been really good.
Thank you, Kellie. We've got time for one more. I think there was another question, wasn't there? God, you all want your Tim Tams, don't you?
Hi, my question's for Victoria.
Well done.
So we've had, obviously you guys have done some fantastic work and you're quite evolved in your product. For those of us that are kind of in the infancy of our journey, where would you think is kind of the key areas that we can look to play to do new things and kind of evolve in that area?
I guess it depends. There's all sorts of, it would all come down to the communication channels, really. I think we were kind of talking about this from I think what's great is that from a social media perspective, we've kind of gone beyond the tipping point of it being this scary channel. It's just another of our communication channels now. So, even in organisations, we're not advanced at all in terms of our employer brand social media communications yet. That's still really yet to come. But even if you're in an organisation that's maybe not using social channels to communicate around your products or your corporate brand or whatever that is, I think leaders now are much more open to that being put on the table. So I think there's a big opportunity there to take some baby steps, whether it's with LinkedIn, with Twitter, Pinterest, just exploring what that's going to do, make it relevant for your business and what you're actually trying to achieve. Choose the appropriate channel to start with, just experimenting. And just kind of put yourself out there, make a good plan, work, on a content calendar that's going to keep you going for, a good kind of 3 months ahead or so you're not panicking at the last minute. Have some flexibility, put some guidelines in place around how you're going to deal with, a challenging situation that comes up. But I think experimenting with some of those social channels is probably a good place to start. I think if you still don't have a mobile site, I think that's your number one priority. Hopefully you'd look to explore HTML5, responsive web design, which means your website's going to respond to any device. I think that's your number one kind of action. So those are probably two things you could explore as a priority, and a kind of minimum expectations now of someone coming in and looking to explore a website or getting to know a business. So those are probably good places to start.
Fabulous advice, thank you. We're now 43 seconds over time. But as Kellie said, please, we invite you to connect, ask questions, share insights, advice. The girls have given you guys their Twitter handles. And of course, just connect with us on LinkedIn. And, we're here to help. Thank you so much, guys, for your insights. Awesome. Thank you.